Hello and welcome everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are tuning in from today. That might be a different time zone. And 8:30 in the morning in Glasgow. What a time to wake up and talk about youth in politics and youth in climate action in particular. Welcome to this session. We're going to take exactly 1 hour. My name is Julius Leiter. I am from Austria and I'm a Climate Pact ambassador. And I'm pleased to be your host today. We are going to be joined by two very important people from the European Commission, from both the DG INPA and the DG Klima. And we are hosting this event jointly as Youth Sounding Board and European Climate Pact. And first of all, I would like to invite you to join our Slido poll as a little icebreaker, which you can find in the chat, where you can let us know where you are basically based according to the time that you have on your screen right now. Maybe we could try this out, how this works. And we already see different options, and you can basically choose the option that corresponds to your local time the most. So it would be 8:30 in Glasgow and 9:30 in Brussels. And then a couple of different responses. So we hope to be seeing some responses coming in. Okay, there we go. This is good to have a little check-in if the technology works. And I'm just told that the responses will come in with a little bit of a delay. If on the platform we could make sure that everyone has access to this slide, that's great, because we're also going to use it for more important things than letting us know which time zone people are based in. But it's good to have this little check-in right in the beginning. For now, we have 100% participation from Glasgow, which is good, but we might have some more responses coming in. Okay, I was just about to say, okay, there we go. Okay, now we are increasing. We're increasing, and we see people tuning in from very, very, very early in the morning. And this is what I find very interesting about this event, that this is actually a global project, because it is run by the Youth Sounding Board, which is a worldwide initiative of the European Commission. And I will now be handing over to my colleague Christina, who is gonna explain a little more about what the Youth Sounding Board is actually about. Christina, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Julius. The decisions we make today will determine our world tomorrow. Young people must have their say. Words from the EU Commissioner for International Partnerships, Jutta Urpilainen. Practicing what she preached, which is something that's a rarity among world leaders. The Youth Sounding Board is a result of that belief by our EU Commissioner. As a result, the Youth Sounding Board is a space for 25 incredible young people, chosen from a cohort of over 4,000 from across the world, to have an influence on the EU's external action through its international partnerships. We play an advisory role to both the Commissioner, Urpilainen, and the Director General for International Partnerships. The board, as we are right now, are helping to make EU action more participatory, relevant, and effective for young people in EU partner countries across all political priorities, which include green alliances and partnerships, alliances for science, technology, and innovation, alliances for sustainable growth and jobs, migration partnerships, governance, peace and security, as well as human development. But all these aspects can never be sustainably achieved if they do not include green interventions. But this means different things in different contexts for all of us on the YSP. And that is why it's important for us, representatives from the global north and developed nations, developing nations and the global south, to include small island developing states like Jamaica, where I am from, to work together on this YSB to advance climate action and environmental justice. Of course, the YSB is currently working on other areas that we're executing through our contributions to the Youth Action Plan, which will entail worldwide consultations with youth. as we work to ensure that we do not only speak from the context of 25, but rather channel the voices of thousands, millions, as we ensure that what we advance through the board will represent the voices of young people across the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as I said, this event is a co-production of both the Youth Sounding Board and the European Climate Pact. And to make you understand what the European Climate Pact is about, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Federico. Federico, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Federico from Italy, and most importantly, I'm a Climate Pact ambassador. So what is the Climate Pact? The European Climate Pact is a movement of people united around a common cause, which is building a more sustainable Europe. It was launched by the European Commission, and the Climate Pact is part of the European Green Deal, and it's really helping the European Union to meet its goal to be the first climate neutral continent by 2050. So the Climate Pact invites people. It's an initiative that is focused on people, communities, and organizations, and really trying to push them to participate in the climate action by doing three main activities. First of all is to connect and share knowledge across the country. You know that the European Union is made by 27 member states, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different languages, so really connecting is fundamental. The second one is about educating people, learning about climate change. Many people don't know what to do, don't know what actions are the most valuable one, because still they don't really know, they don't have the full perspective around climate change. The third one is to develop and implement and scale up solutions, because we see many grassroots solutions, but the challenge is really scaling up and making sure that something that is happening in a small city, maybe in Poland or in Estonia, can be replicated somewhere in Europe or in the world. But how, you might ask, the Climate Pact works. So the Climate Pact ambassadors, the citizens, are really the core of the Climate Pact, and they play a fundamental role in its implementation. Without the citizen, the Climate Pact wouldn't exist. So these ambassadors are really people from different backgrounds and from different corners of all Europe, and are all committed to climate action. At the moment, there are 500 ambassadors from 51 different countries. So not only from the European Union countries, but really from the whole Europe area. So it's an EU initiative, but it has the ambition to scale up to the global level. So if you're in the European Union, I really encourage you to check the Climate Pact website so you can learn more how you can be engaged and become a Climate Pact ambassador. But if you're not from the European Union, no problem. You can think how the Climate Pact values could be exported to your own country or region, and really how you can help us, and you can help the European Union really to push the Climate Pact across all the world. And now back to Julius.
Thank you so much, Federico. Thank you for this wonderful explanation and introduction. And we are about to get started. And before we get started, I just wanted to say once again, thank you to our speakers today, to Elena from DG Klima and Agnieszka from DG INPA for coming along today and listening to you, because this is the point of this event. This point is really a speaker's corner for ideas of young people, how we can make international partnerships of the EU more youth-led and more climate-focused. And the floor is yours through the Q&A that you find on the Slido. You can submit questions through there, and we're going to take consideration of every single one of those. Virginia, my colleague, is going to do that as soon as questions come in. So please feel free to use that function. And at the same time, we are obviously going to try to include as many comments as well that you submit. And Virginia is going to try to collate those as well. We are now going to hear a couple of ideas from youth representatives from the Youth Sounding Board and the Climate Pact, and we're then going to give the floor to our two guest speakers to respond to that. And of course, this is also intended as a starting point for continued collaboration. So really, please also use the platform to connect to peers, network amongst each other, and maybe create projects and come up with concrete proposals that you can then table with, for example, Agnieszka and her team in the follow-up to this event. So this is really also as a starting point of actually making a change rather than just meeting for 1 hour and talking about these things. We really want to see the impact of that. And I want to reassure you that your input will be taken into account very sincerely. So without further ado, I would now like to move to our first pitch, which is going to be delivered by Daisy, and which is around the question of what kind of support do youth in climate action need? Daisy, you have the floor. I believe Daisy should be speaking now. We might have a connection issue there. Maybe someone else. Yes, okay. Yeah, we can go.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Daisy, and I'm from Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, Abidjan. And it's a great privilege for me to speak on behalf of the youth on the board. As you know, the climate change is a great issue and is a great thing to be about. You can go to the next slide, please. So what the youth in climate action need from the European Union and globally as speaking. The number one support is addressing safety and security issue that environmental defender face. You know, most of the people most of the youth climate change makers are mostly facing attacks and arrests. And mostly this is not fair. So it would be good from the European Union and the global community to support them, to assist them, to bring to them most of the tools that we need to be more active in their communities, because the issue related to climate can disfavor some companies, and most of them, or sometimes some influencers, that they will use their position to now silence the activists that are fighting for the sake of Earth. So it'll be good for the European Union to provide the tools and the assistance that they need to continue this activism that will definitely be a great benefit for the whole humanity. The second one is the access to quality education and instruction and support in research. Most of the people that are active in promoting climate change and supporting the activities to educate people, they're not themselves educated about it. They don't have the right education, maybe the adequate education to face the challenges. They need the support in terms of education, they need the support in terms of research, because they want to go further to bring back qualitative data and quantitative data, so that this can help the European Union in their actions and the global community as they are moving forward to sustain these actions. The third one is the messaging campaign support. That's someone that is very important, because most of the activists, most of the change makers, the climate change aspect are not supported, both on media, traditional and digital media. And it would be great from the European Union as they are moving forward, as they engage themselves to share what they are doing, to share the data they are providing, to share the activities they are launching on, to share the actions they are setting in their communities. With this visibility, change can happen. But if they remain silent, that's in inverted commas, if they are not visible, if they are not supported, both on digital platform and traditional media, their action remain unknown. And since it is now known, nobody would consider that this is a great issue to tackle. So it would be great for the community, the global community and the European Union to see this aspect that I mentioned above, supporting them by giving them visibility as they are sharing the ideas, concept, and result of the researches, provide them the right education, the adequate instructions, even the fund for their researches, and then assist them, giving them, or maybe voting some policies or some laws that will protect them against unrightful arrestation from other individuals or businesses as they are moving forward to save our humanity. Thank you so much. And I give the floor to Julius.
Thank you very much, Daisy. And I will yield the floor over to Agnieszka, who's going to react to this input without any further ado. Agnieszka.
Thank you very much, Julius. Thank you very much, Daisy, for the presentation. Good morning, everyone. Good morning from Brussels. Let me first tell you how delighted I am to be with all of you here today. And I would very much like to correct Julius that it's not me and Elena being the VIPs, but the VIPs are all of you guys bringing the ideas, representing the Youth Sounding Board and the climate ambassadors, but also all the colleagues listening to us. So thank you for attending and thank you for being with us. What I hear from your presentation is a general plea to support the activism of youth, of young people in supporting the climate action. I would say that we are seeing fundamental change here, and which comes with the awareness, the growing awareness of the demographic changes around the world. I mean, with the numbers being 80% of global population, which is more than 1 billion people in the world, being between ages 15 and 24. This is a huge number. And if you look at children and youth all together globally, they represent 40% of the global population. So we need to take you seriously and not to have you on the menu of our discussions, but sitting together with us on the table while working on the policy proposals. As I said, things are changing. The creation of the Youth Sounding Board and the pitch that the great pitch that Christina did at the very beginning, together with Federico, are the examples. You have heard that recently President Ursula von der Leyen announced 2022 to become the European Year of Youth. And the event that we are all participating in today, co-organized by young people from all over the world, including the European Youth, but by colleagues from all over the world, together with the European Commission, is one example of the spirit. Let me also tell you that the contributions that you are putting on the table today, and I'm very grateful for your constructive approach and the energy that you put into developing these ideas, will feed into the work that we started to prepare the Youth Action Plan in External Action that will be adopted by the Commission in September next year, and which will put forward concrete ideas, concrete steps to support youth action all over the world. So let me finish with these introductory comments. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll hand over the floor to Elena for a quick reaction.
Thank you very much. I feel it very much like Agnieszka. I'm not a VIP, I'm a public servant, and I'm super proud about it. First of all, thanks a lot for showing up today with such a passion, authenticity, and conviction, because these are the features of youth. And you may not see the difference in which you are being treated, but allow me to say I see it because I've been you a few decades ago. I'm the generation of Velvet Revolution that meant freedom in my country, Czechoslovakia. And just to tell you, the first poll that was public poll that was done just before the change in my country, the main concern has been devastation of environment back in '89. And once freedom happened, this concern actually disappeared suddenly and is struggling to appear on the top of the agenda. Now, we have now the Green Deal that is being pushed. We have the Year of Youth that was already mentioned. We have the European strategy for youth, and we will have a youth strategy for our partners. So this should be all about connecting European youth with the global youth. And As we know, climate emergency is a global challenge, and hence it needs to be a connecting theme, because everyone from you already experienced, things or landscapes you care for vanish or change. But you also know that the mobilization does work. This is something that our economic climate models do not capture. And climate solutions, indeed, they require teamwork and cooperation. And for the teamwork to work, we need to support these bridges to happen for everyone to fight climate change. Unlike the older generations, you are the global citizens. You move in the virtual world with a lot of ease. You can travel, you can discover. And so what we can say is that the green must be approached in everyday aspect of life. The green cannot be a niche subject. The green needs to be the political subject. And this is where my institution will do the utmost vis-a-vis the international partners, but also member states. Yes, you are being very much exposed in the media, but you are using it also very well to your benefit, I must say, because you are able to mobilize the opinion for your benefit. And Agnieszka and myself, I cannot imagine how this would happen if we would like to mobilize in the same way back in the 90s. That would be much, much more difficult. What we want to do with youth, with young people, is to make them part of the systemic change, but not by teaching you, but by supporting you in doing so. And of course, the tools you are calling on, the materials, the education, this is very much what we push for. We also need to work against the tides of disinformation, fake news. And I think this is where the role of the climate environmental activists is very successful. In Europe, we try to, safeguard our ambassadors for their brilliant ideas because they can come with ideas we never thought of, and we will try to make them a reality. Many climate ambassadors can already liaise with the European Parliament offices in countries, and they can, organize events. We have, of course, the funding opportunities for Erasmus, which is the exchange, and which now has green transition in the course. So this is a chance for all of you. And the youth NGOs can, of course, apply for variety of tenders in the different categories. So this is a little bit my initial reassurance that you are being seen, you are being heard, and of course there are plenty of opportunity that you just need to uncover.
Thank you so much. And I'm very pleased to say that we have an enormous audience today, and we have a lot of questions coming in. So I'll be handing over to my colleague Virginia to sift through this amount, because obviously we have to move on to our next speaker. But maybe we have space for 1 or 2 questions. Virginia, do you have anything interesting for us?
Yes, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Actually, we've had amazing interaction on the chat. A lot of people have tuned in, said I commented on what is happening. And actually, there are very interesting questions. We have the top 3, the ones that were most liked by our audience, about different issues. But actually, the one that we really want to ask both of you, Elena and Agnieszka, to answer very quickly is, what can the EU concretely do to support young people outside Europe, and how can young people outside of Europe benefit from the initiatives that the EU is putting in place to support climate action?
I can go first if you want, just to make it running. First of all, we can make your voices visible. And don't underestimate this. We can amplify those voices and bring them where needed. We can also, show where the possibilities are, because often it's not about lack of possibilities. It's just that they are not known. So this is again about bringing forward all the opportunities for networking, for funding, and for instance, for research, mobility that do exist also in international cooperation.
Thank you very much. I will take on now. From our perspective, I think what Elena said is absolutely right. The really important thing is to have your voices heard, and not only through the traditional, I would say, ways of big youth organizations, but reaching the most outside of these structures. So, for example, when we were launching consultations on the Youth Action Plan, the formal consultations, we wanted to make sure that the youth groups, organizations, movements to whom we are reaching out is as representative as possible, and we will even try to go through a series of different iterations. So via these groups, reaching out still to those who are more vulnerable, who are hidden, who are still staying outside of these formal discussions. Another way that where we really wanted to listen to you is ensuring that during trips, missions of our hierarchy, our bosses, our commissioners, that in every conversations, youth situation comes to the front, but not only again speaking about youth, but also inviting young people, young organizations to the table during these discussions. And maybe one point last but not least, that youth policies are not only those where we see the name youth referred to. We are very much, I mean, I myself am in charge in the international partnerships department of the European Commission, in charge not only of youth policies, but also of education and culture. And this is where as well we are having, you know, a broader approach and speaking about with the youth and how to address the needs, especially in the education for climate, in raising the awareness around the green agenda. Thank you. Over to you, Julius.
Thank you very much. And we are swiftly moving over to our second pitch of the day. And this is going to be given by Federico. And the question was, how can youth be better included in decision-making on climate change policies?
Thank you, Julius. So if we could please switch back to the presentation. And I think it's slide number 10. So we'll wait a few seconds. Yeah, once again, the question is, how can youth be better included in decision-making on climate change policies? So slide number 10. And so we identified the three main areas. So the first one is about addressing barriers. The second one is about developing assistance. And the third one is about creating bridges. And I see these 3 points really developing in sequence. And without one of these points, of course, you cannot achieve or you cannot answer to the main question. So if you go to the next slides, please. So this is about addressing barriers. So it's not just about financial barriers, but it's actually about physical barriers for young people to participate in the climate crisis conversation. So at COP, I think we all seen a different type of engagement. We've seen like many people sometimes excluded from the negotiations, and of course this is not ideal, because when you exclude someone, especially people from marginalized people, then of course you're not taking into consideration their views into the discussion. So if we need to split barriers in two different categories, so as I mentioned before, the first one is about financial barriers, and of course many young people coming from developing countries, they crowdfunded their way to attendance. Many people that also I personally know were not able to go to COP because they were not supported financially by their government, or they didn't find in time financial resources to actually travel to COP. So this is, I think, really that the European Union can provide a big support, also in terms of providing funding to a target number of qualified youth leaders, And we have seen also this year in pre-COP in Milan, organized by the Italian government. For the first time, 400 young people were invited and were, of course, supported in coming to Milan and participate in the discussion pre-COP. And also, Prime Minister Mario Draghi launched commitment to actually have this kind of event happening every year. So we will look forward next year to see the pre-COP inviting many people from around the world. And so this is a good practice that we believe should be repeated. So next slide, please. So the second point is about making official development assistance to third countries or NGO, conditional upon meeting and prescribed youth reach for youth leadership. So again, this is connected to the previous slide, but at the same time, it's also about sort of setting the right direction. So we need to increase the youth participation, and the tool to do that could be through youth quotas. Of course, youth quotas are a good tool to indicate the right path, but they should be a temporary solution, since participation should not be enforced, but should become something natural in the long term. Next slide. The last point is about bridging local youth climate activists to national government. We've seen this really struggle where individuals are not really listened by national governments or local government. So here, civil societies organizations play a really important role in facilitating the dialogues. And so we really need to mobilize local youth delegation and to facilitate dialogues between youth and their governments. And the Climate Pact is a great example of doing that, like really people coming together and being the bridge between the EU institutions and the national institutions and the citizen on a national level, on a local level, on a municipal level. So these are my three main contributions, and I'll give the floor back to Julius.
Thank you so much. That was excellent. A lot of points in there. I will hand over to Elena first for a 2-minute reaction, and then to Agnieszka also for a 2-minute reaction. I need to be a bit policing about the time because we have a strict 60 hours limit. So I know this is a difficult task, but maybe you can try to conclude it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. My first advice would be do not get obsessed with institutions and what I call the classical lawmaking. Bismarck, the founder of Germany, actually once said that the citizens should not see how laws or sausages are being made. But of course, this was 150 years ago. But the main difference is that today we can excruciate some decisions from decision makers, even from the streets or through hearings of politicians. Youth had an impact in Europe, and that's why we have European Green Deal. I must really emphasize that. Youth has a financing instrument. It's the next generation funding for the recovery in the different countries. There is a possibility to initiate citizens' initiatives if you network across countries and push the initiative towards the Commission to initiate a certain proposal. Youth can join my institution as a trainee from all over the world or as an employee from Europe. You can push for national referenda. Countries like France, Netherlands, Denmark, or lately Germany organize citizens' assemblies with a strong presence of youth. Of course, COP26 has clear limits, and I acknowledge that when it comes to the topic of negotiations. Myself, I'm leading the department on climate adaptation, yet I'm not part of the negotiations. I'm not a negotiator. But where the voices are really important are in the events like the one today. You know, whatever you can think, you know, the presence is valuable here and your views will be taken back. My boss, the Executive Vice President Timmermans, is meeting youth representatives regularly. And, you know, we really try to listen to the views of youth from different countries. I'm going on, you know, many talking opportunities exactly to exchange and to see, you know, what is the vision out there. The commitment of the non-EU ambassadors, of course, will be very strong and hopefully strong and will grow. And it's amazing already to listen to Federico, how well he's rehearsed on Climate Pact, because this is essentially what we want. We want to have people who know what they are doing, and they do it on their own without, you know, the commission or the institution being strongly behind. And within a few years, I hope that this whole Climate Pact will be owned by the ambassadors, and in a decade it will be part of everyone in our DNA. Now, what I would like to say about quotas, I'm the result of quotas of women in my institution, and I'm very proud about it. So, but be aware that we have not been very united in Europe when it comes to quotas of women in certain, you know, boards or in certain institutions. But now it becomes a reality, and I do believe, I strongly believe that this will become the future. Funding, this is a real issue. I come from a very simple family, though I managed to get scholarship for 2 years of studies. And I do believe it is always possible, you know, to find the sources if you are brilliant, if you are active, and if you know your needs, and if you plan properly. Of course, this can be a little plaster to your you know, grievances, but that's just the start, and hopefully it will get better.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we will have to move to the question section now. I will then hand the question over to Agnieszka, and Agnieszka can still make a comment about this point when she answers to the question. But because of time, we really have to move on to the question. So which question are we going to pick, Virginia? Let me know.
We're going to take the first question, which is, how can grassroots bottom-up projects and initiatives be best aligned with policy and truly become part of systemic change and actually scale up? Before I just give the floor to Agnieszka for a reply to this question, I just want to remind everyone on Slido that they can vote the questions to pick the ones that you want to be answered the most. So please go there and vote for your favorite questions. Now over to you, Agnieszka.
Thank you very much. So quickly, following the suggestion of Julius still, a couple of comments regarding the previous point. On the climate crisis conversations. I would like, building on what Elena said, I would like to go one step further. What is indeed a good development is to see the big youth event. Federico, you mentioned the pre-COP meeting in Italy. There was also a big meeting with youth organized in France by President Macron. Now we are leading the preparations towards the EU-Africa summit that is to take place in Brussels in February next year, where the youth participation will also feature high, not only at the discussions, but also in the Africa Week leading to the summit. But I think that the challenge now that the policymakers agree the need to give the youth the floor, we need to merge the parallel conversations, having on the one hand big youth summit discussing certain topics, and on the other hand the leaders discussing the topics, but merging these two. And the real question is how to ensure that those discuss together and not in parallel through our, let's say, you know, civil servants, like Elena said, bridge making between those two. So that's the first point. And on the conditionality, I mean, I can only support what Elena said. Also making a plea to Federico, these quotas ideas is not only for the global south, which was really indicated on your slide. We're talking about youth across the globe. So again, let's get away from the barriers north-south, because I think that there is a need for this youth empowerment, both in the north and in the south. And here, one concrete example of what the European Commission is trying to do is precisely encourage the leaders, the governments of the participating countries to the EU-Africa summit in February to bring on board within their delegations a representative of youth organization. How successful we will be, let's see. It's a try, and it will be a real test. On the question, Virginia, I think that here Elena would be much better to reply. I would only say that from my perspective of a novice in this domain of climate policy and climate activism, I would say that I wouldn't see the role of the grassroots organizations to align with the policy, but rather to provoke change that is happening at the level of policymakers, especially in the green agenda, when we need new ideas, when we need creative solutions to the many challenges, also to bridge not only the challenges resulting from the climate change, becoming more and more tragic, but also the social agenda and the inclusiveness of this green transition. So it's not about alignment, but it's about provoking, it's about innovation, it's about bringing new ideas. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And I'll immediately quickly hand over to our next speaker, Benji, for the pitch about how can we create partnerships between youth from the EU and partner countries. Obviously, partly already touched upon, but I'm sure Benji has some concrete ideas. Benji, over to you. And if we can have the slide on presentation 3, please.
Right, thank you, Julius. Good day, everyone. I am Benji Aquino from the Philippines, representing the Youth Sounding Board. Before proceeding with the pitch, I'd like to recognize the University of the Philippines Marine Biological Society, Wrapup Philippines, and the Youth for Biodiversity Philippines for their invaluable inputs. Now the question is, how can we create partnerships between youth from the EU and youth from partner countries? In creating partnerships between youth from the EU and youth from partner countries, the EU has to be guided by one fundamental fact. Developing countries in the global south are disproportionately affected by climate change. While the effects of climate crisis are felt worldwide, there are countries that are more vulnerable than others, and there are definitely countries that have contributed to excess carbon emissions way more than other countries have. It is the recognition of this fact that our recommendations have centered on. It doesn't mean that youth from the EU would have less of a voice, would have less of a support, but it also just means that youth from the third countries of the global south must not be treated as victims passively receiving aid, but must be looked at as rights holders actively asserting their rights. We present 4 main ideas. First, create and support a global youth network of environmentalists working for a comprehensive and unified agenda led by the youth of the global south. Second, fund youth-led projects and campaigns jointly organized by youth from the EU and youth from partner countries. Third, organize youth-led exchanges and peer-to-peer learning. And fourth, build bridges through education. On the first point, create and support a global youth network of environmentalists working for a comprehensive and unified agenda led by the youth of the global south. Cognizant of the fact that the global south bears the brunt of the effects of the carbon emissions of the global north, many environmentalists countries of the global south have tried to reach out to policymakers in the global north. However, because of barriers relating to language, geography, and finances, such attempts have been futile. Partnerships between the youth from the EU and youth from the third countries should be guided by a comprehensive and unified agenda crafted by youth of the global south and aided in implementation by the youth of the EU. For instance, position papers drafted by the youth of the global south are presented to EU's members of parliaments by youth from the EU. Second, youth-led projects and campaigns jointly organized by youth from the EU and youth from partner countries should be funded. Funding opportunities could be made available to projects and campaigns that are led by organizations or a consortium of organizations that meet a certain EU to third country ratio in terms of leadership or membership. Third, organize youth-led exchanges and peer-to-peer learning. Youth from the EU have not experienced the brunt of climate change as have the youth from developing countries in the global south. I am from the Philippines, and last week or just this week, we commemorated Typhoon Yolanda, Typhoon Haiyan, one of the strongest typhoons to have ever hit the planet in history, killing 6,000 people in my country. On the other hand, youth from developing countries of the Global South have not had the privilege of accessing quality education and technology present in the EU. The youth from the EU will benefit from immersion activities in countries and communities most affected by climate change. This may include visits to coastal communities or rural farming villages in the Global South. On the other hand, the youth from partner countries, especially developing countries from the Global South, will benefit from academic training from institutions from countries in the EU, as well as learning from young experts in the region. Lastly, build bridges through education. State institutions, NGOs, and civil society organizations should put forward cultural and educational programs where youth from different countries are able to connect and exchange experiences and ideas. Even with the training programs that were earlier suggested, the international nature of participants would be highly enriching. Indeed, organizations such as the Center for Mediterranean Integration and the Anna Lindh Foundation especially focus on the creation of initiatives that build bridges between different countries in Europe and the Mediterranean neighborhood. We hope that these 4 ideas will pave the way for a collaboration and synergy among youth environmentalists. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Federico. Before I hand over to our 2 speakers, I want to say that we have a very strict time limit. So we have 4 minutes to react to this. And I don't want to sort of divide the speaking time. So maybe if Agnieszka begins and then hands over to Elena within the respect of those 4 minutes. And I will let you know with a little bing that I'll make once the 2 minutes are over and once the 4 minutes are over, at which point I would ask you to conclude, just to have enough space also for the questions to come. Agnieszka, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Julius. And I feel all of us, speaking faster and faster in the in the panel, and then the stress is increasing. So within the time limit, very quickly, I think that the key word that Benji mentioned is building bridges. And this is, I think, the what lays behind all the proposals. You as youth, you need to go, first of all, beyond stereotypes. You need to go beyond the mental borders of North and South. When we speak of mobility, of bridges, it is, of course, between North and South. In both directions, but it should also be between South and South. So really, we're speaking about bridges that goes in all directions and connecting the dots. This is what makes you stronger and makes you having a much bigger comparative advantage to everyone around. When I speak of connecting dots, is really between people, between ideas, between different structures, and between different perceptions of reality. It's also creating empathy, which is so much important in the domain of climate change. So in a way, when you catch a cold in one part of the world, empathy means that the other part of the world is feeling the fever, the effects of the fever. And this is very true and particular for the climate change agenda. And I think one additional point, that partnerships must be created beyond the structures, first of all, and beyond the requirements of different calls for proposals that we are putting forward, that require the South and the North to team up, and going beyond these structures will ensure that the partnerships are sustainable and that the partnerships are lasting. And last but not least, on the mobility, on the learning, I can only adhere to the idea of exchanges of educations, and this is what we're putting forward in the programming exercise that we are making for the next 7 years for the European budget devoted to partnerships and climate action. To make sure that we create space and that we support mobility and exchanges between students, between young people from all over the globe. Over to you.
1 minute, Elena, if you manage.
I'll try to. Of course, we need partnerships, and I would like just to dispel the stereotype. Actually, Agnieszka spoke about. Benji, I have seen forests of my youth disappearing because of bark beetle and the drought. I have also seen that a Bangladesh school is much better prepared to face the flood than is Belgium, because we had devastating floods and 41 dead people here in Belgium. I will probably also sound dismissive to say that geographies with internet shouldn't be a problem. Language with, shouldn't be a problem among you young people. So indeed, it is a lot about the funding and about finding out about these possibilities. And I am very hopeful that we can manage to do so. Just on the example of the networking, we animate beyond the Climate Pact. We work also with mayors in my team from all over the world, and many are quite young. So please do not hesitate to become part of the city administration to move your local authorities to make a change. We will see the programming happening that Agnieszka mentioned with countries of the global south, and do push your administration to highlight the importance of climate and environmental issues. Share your expertise, tell them we know how to do such projects, make us part of it. A lot will depend on digital literacy. Your generation is in the front line of it. So play this advantage, to your benefit. And finally, of course, traveling around the globe is difficult at present, but please do brainstorm what kind of projects or real life encounters you would like to organize once we are safe. And I'm sure with help of the EU delegations or of the headquarters here in Brussels, we could manage.
Over to Virginia.
Wonderful. The chat is on fire. What can I say? We have a lot of questions. If we can get a 1-minute reply for the first question, which has been voted by actually a few people in the spirit of democracy, we'll pick that one first. What can the EU concretely do to support young people outside Europe, and how can they benefit? And I will just give this question over to Agnieszka for a 1-minute reply.
Thank you very much. So concretely, we are in the process of programming, as I said. So basically distributing the money that we have for the next 7 years, and we are very much looking at how can we spend this money to support the young people outside Europe. We do it through. We want to do it, so we're thinking about different programs supporting mobility. I spoke about it. Just a minute ago. We are thinking about different leadership programs that many of you mentioned earlier today. The development of youth sounding boards. There was also a question, I think, in the chat. That was asked about it. Yes, many people get jealous of Youth Urpilainen's youth sounding board and want to replicate it in different parts of the world. I have mentioned mobility. There are all different ways to support education that was also mentioned in the discussion. So training the teachers, because of course when one speaks of education, it's also not only the students, but it's also making sure that you have good teachers equally skilled in digital, in modern tools, in participatory, let's say, education that also have the tools. So there are many ideas that come to the fore, and these type of discussions like today will bring us also firepower to feed the programming exercise that we are running into. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Virginia, go ahead.
I do have 1 more minute for a reply from Elena's side to hear a little bit more on the planning that the EU has, especially DigiClima, to possibly inject financial support to youth initiatives in the next years to help them scale up, especially grassroots initiatives.
Okay, Virginia and youth, I must admit that DigiClima is a Cinderella of the Commission, which means that we very much rely on cooperation with DGs like DG INPA or regional policy, etc. But we are aligned and we come with heavy policy. Now, what we will try to do beyond the classical public funding is to work with philanthropies that are very interested indeed to come in and to finance the small ideas, the small and beautiful, because this is where the issue is. Everybody is ready to finance the big, the impactful, etc. But even small ideas can be very impactful. Our LIFE instrument, which is the instrument for environment and climate action, has already done a lot to, pilot actions by NGOs, by, on information, for instance, on governance. And we will continue doing so. Just don't hesitate to educate yourselves about all the opportunities because they are there.
Thank you so much. I think we are now moving into the final phase of this event, and I will soon hand over to you again for 1 minute from the Youth Sounding Board, 1 minute from the Climate Pact, 1 minute from Elena, and 1 minute from Agnieszka. I would like to, before I do that though, emphasize one question which we also had in the chat, which was about the human rights, but unfortunately it has now disappeared. Oh no, it is still there. What human rights and climate message do you want to tell global youth who are, I'm afraid it has disappeared again. Maybe Virginia, could you paste this quest? There we go. What human rights and climate message do you want to tell the global youth who are voiceless, marginalized, indigenous members and youth living with disabilities? I attended COP last week, and I felt like this connection of human rights and climate was really strong. So this is just to highlight that this is still up there. But I will now hand over to the one final minute from the Youth Sounding Board before we conclude this event. So I'll hand over to Christina. What do we take away and what are we going to do next, Christina? 1 minute.
The wise.
Okay. Oh, go on, Christina. I thought there was a connection.
The YSB in its function to ensure that the EU external action is more participatory, relevant, and effective for young people in EU partner countries will act as an accountability partner. We want to ensure that in this ongoing fight for environmental action and climate justice, self-identities are not silenced and that we do not become numb to the nuances. Intersectionality is integrated in all interventions, and that perpetrators should not retain their privilege through the guise of partnerships, and that young people will be truly commended for their involvements and not censored. As a result, as a YSB, through our own work, we will ensure that the most vulnerable youth voices are represented in the ongoing Youth Action Plan consultations that are ongoing, and that where we can, we will facilitate bridges and connections with EU organizations and other relevant stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 1 minute from Federico and the Climate Pact.
Okay, yeah. So as the Climate Pact ambassadors and also a member of the Youth Task Force, together with my colleague Julius, Lina, and Kasia, so we are in the process right now of the development of the youth engagement strategy, and we're trying to discuss in how young people can be embedded even more in the Climate Pact, and then can really take leadership role and really lead the discussion on a national level. So I will make sure that all the inputs today, everything we discussed today will be taken into account and will be included for the development of the youth engagement strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very precise, and I look forward to working with you on that in the future on the YES strategy. 1 minute, maybe from Elena, what we'll do next, and yeah, your main takeaways.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you very much for this discussion, because as Federico said, it will influence how we will shape the engagement strategy with youth. So nothing is pre-cooked on this. We will stay in touch, hopefully post each other on information, and hopefully the Climate Pact movement will move and integrate also voices from across the globe, because climate justice is not just the problem of those that are in front line of climate change. I can tell you that this is a problem that resonates very strongly also in the part of Europe I know the best. And of course, maybe a little publicity. Don't hesitate to sign up for the Climate Pact newsletter to find out about the personal stories and get inspired and see what are the techniques our activists are using, to nudge their governments to change.
Thank you so much. And for the final comment and takeaway, I'll hand over to Agnieszka.
I have half a minute, right?
You will take your minute.
The keywords are really, the moment is now. Don't waste this window of opportunity. It's now or never. Opportunities are really many. You can count on our support. We stay in touch directly or indirectly, also via the delegations in all of your countries, who are also the ambassadors of the new approach with the youth and for the youth. And make your voice heard. We want to listen to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for tuning in. This was actually unbelievable. We finished on time. My final invitation goes out to stick around on the chat, because we will be posting 2 email addresses. One for the youth part of the Climate Pact. If you want to get in touch with us, please send us an email. And the second one for the YSB, the Youth Sounding Board. If you want to get in touch, please send an email. I know we only have 1 hour here today, and you probably also might want to move on, but please have an eye on the chat. We will post these links soon, also for the newsletter of the Climate Pact that Elena mentioned. And please feed us your input, feed us your projects, and we are there to support you. And I think, as you saw today, the Commission is really much behind youth in climate action and is on your side. And I think this is sort of the main takeaway from my side as a moderator. And all that remains is to thank our 2 speakers for coming along today. To thank everyone from around the world for tuning in at various different hours, and especially also thanks to my team here of speakers and Virginia as the Q&A moderator for helping put this together. And I wish you an excellent day. And yeah, as I said, please stay in touch with us.